Today in Smackey's Garage, we're going to be working on my 1969 Mustang. We're going to be finally lowering the front a little bit more with these QA1 Coilovers. Now, if you follow the channel, you know that I put lowering springs on this a while back because I have aluminum heads, aluminum intake, and it still was sitting too high. So we're going to put these on and see if we can get it down a little bit further. Let's go ahead, let's jump into it. Now, I don't want to get to the point where the car is too low. I want to have adjustment over it just so that I can get it to the place where I want it, and then I'll be happy with it. So to do this, we're going to have to do some work to the car, which includes making some custom parts. On this car, the way that the struts are held up is there's a small strut tower bracket right here. And the one that comes with the QA1 Coilovers is significantly higher. So ever since I installed the TCP strut tower brace, that lifts this up a little bit on the stock piece, and it's going to in turn lift this up. So because of that, I'm going to need to create a shorter one. And while I'm there, I'm going to make it a little bit more custom and make it fit a little bit better for my application. All right, so since there is a lot of snow outside, I'm not going to back this up and try to move the car over. So I'm going to put it on these rollers and shift it over. I don't want to deal with getting this car stuck trying to move it. Yeah, but this is not enough room to change the suspension over. Now, let's go ahead and push it over. All right, so we should have more room now where I can actually do the work. Don't need to worry about this pole here since the pole is gonna be there and not opening the door. Then on this side, plenty of room to work. Just might need a little bit more lighting. All right, so here's exactly what I'm talking about. When we start looking at the car, the front is still way too high. Yes, I do have it up on a ramp right now, but you can see that I can literally fit an entire fist up in there. So there's still a lot of extra room in there. And ever since I switched over to the aluminum heads and aluminum intake, it just doesn't sit at the height that I think it should be sitting at. This should kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what the problem is going to be. You can see there is a big height difference between these two. So gonna need to do some work there to make it fit. Well, the car is pretty dusty from sitting for a while, but here's what we're going to take off. We're going to go ahead and remove these few bolts. We're going to leave this plate on it, and then we're going to see how much room there's actually between this and the hood. It's probably not a lot of room. I do note that these bolts are going to need to be, these bolts aren't long enough as they are today, so we'll have to do something about those too. So let's go ahead and remove this, and then we'll probably end up taking out the strut just so we can see how much clearance there actually is. So we can go ahead and we can bolt in the other brackets. So I think the best way for me to see if this is going to fit is to actually take the strut out, which is just 2 more bolts down below. The question is going to be, what size are they? All right, quick look at the height difference. Yeah, that's a pretty big difference in height. Are we gonna get even close? You know, it's really hard to see if it's actually latched correctly or not. I ended up putting my GoPro in there. We'll take a look, but more space will be better. All right, so I've been inspecting this GoPro footage a little bit and trying to figure out if it's actually making contact. I don't think it is. I think if anything, it's very close. I think the next step would be to use some sort of Play-Doh or some sort of material to make sure that it's not making contact, but you know, this is promising, too close for comfort. So either way, I will probably end up taking this down some because it is very, very close, but we'll see. At least what I'm finding out here is I really don't need to take off that much material. I just need to find the right amount. All right, so it's a new day and I got some things in the mail. So I ended up getting this modeling clay so I can figure out exactly how much material we need to take off. Okay, now to make this work, I'm going to use this modeling clay, make it thin enough so that it'll crush under the hood when I shut it. But I'm going to put it on the top of here, and then we'll see how much of thickness there is on it left. Let's go ahead and shut it, see how we do. It's definitely on the thicker side, but you can definitely see there's some low areas. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it a little bit thinner. Try one more time. So we can see the green there, and you can see the indents on it right there. And that is coming up to the top of the hood, right at these indents, right on this line. So in order to make this work, I'm probably gonna have to take off a little. We can go ahead and see how thick that actually is. You can see the four corners pretty clearly, so you can see it's thin on all the sides. I'm gonna go ahead and try to get a measurement of how thin it is before I decide what I'm gonna cut off, but you can see definitely on the thinner side in those areas. Okay, so we know a little bit more clearance here is better. Now, here's the plate that came off of the car, and this is the plate that came with the strut tower brace kit that I bought. Now, I could take this, I could put it on my mill over there, and I could just mill off 1/8 of an inch to make it a little bit thinner, and it would probably be okay, but I want to go a little bit more custom than that. I'm only running the strut tower bar on this. I'm not running the Monte Carlo bar that connects from here to the front, which they do sell for their kit. So it kind of looks incomplete with this extra piece here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to design something custom in Fusion 360 of different thicknesses. We're going to go ahead and we're going to try them out. We'll see which one fits the best and which one gives me enough clearance. So let's go ahead, print some of those out and fit them on the car, see how much clearance we have with those different designs before we make this out of metal. All right, so I have all these printouts here. These ones are made from PLA, ABS. I'm probably not gonna use those. I was just using those to make sure I get the fit right on this. These ones here are made from PETG, and these are the ones that are made from different thicknesses that actually match up for what's available from Send Cut Send. So I can easily just ship this out and have them cut one out for me. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get all these test fit and we're gonna see which one fits the best. We'll start with the one that is the thickest, but it still has a good amount of material difference between this and the original size. So let's go ahead, let's see if we can get these to fit. See how close we are. So holes and everything line up, which is what I was going for. This should be in the right position as well. A little flimsy because it is plastic and it's not solid, but so I have two options. I have this one or I have this one which goes on top. So why don't we start with the thicker one, and then we can see how much material is left. With this on here, looks like a decent fit. All right, so I don't know if it's easy to see, but you can see a spot right here. And that is where it is touching. That is the only spot left where it's touching. And on this, you can see it's touching right there. So I should be able to take this off now, and we can see how thick it actually is. So that's significantly better, as you can see. That thickness, I'll have to take a micrometer to it, but it's still on the thin side. But the good news is, when it's completely bolted down, it's still not hitting. All right, now looking at the design here, you can see this design here, very functional, very strong, looks good. This design here, more clean, more straightforward. Definitely not as strong because it's not as thick, but it does look good. All right, one last fit check, this time with the thinner bracket. Last one, essentially same spot. See the mark up there, and see the mark down here. Then holding that one up to the light, you can see that it's pretty much completely gone. You can see a little bit of light through it, but it is significantly better. Alright, so now that we know this design fits, we're going to go ahead and we're going to place the order. I'm going to order them from Send Cut Send. It looks like they should be here in a few days. So with that order, I've decided to order the 190 thick one. It still is clearing, and if I really need to take off more material on it, I can easily just use my mill and machine some down. So my choice is the 125 1/8 inch thick or the 190. I decided to go with the 190. With everything on order, we can go ahead and take apart the car, see if there's anything else that I need to get while the car is taken apart. So let's go ahead and get these springs out and take a look. Of course, this is my least favorite part of the project because it's probably the most dangerous. Not something that I ever want to do, but it's something that has to be done to put coilovers in this car. I guess the nice thing with these being lowering springs, really don't need to compress them that much to get everything out, but after everything's out, everything should be free in there. You can actually see, if you look right there, I'm missing one of these on the back side, so that's what's been causing the squeaking on my springs. Okay, so it's been about a week, the parts are here. I'm very happy with the way they look. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna take a look at kind of how they look and compare them to what I designed in the brackets that are on the car now. But overall, very happy with them. I also ended up getting some parts from National Parts Depot. A lot of the spring isolators were completely gone. You can see this one is solid as a rock. I ended up buying some new ones, so these are gonna get replaced. And then I got some bump stops for the front suspension. So I'm gonna replace some other parts while I'm in there of things I needed, but let's go ahead, pull these out and take a look. So as you notice, I did buy multiple sets. In case I need to modify any, and if I do have any left over, I'll end up putting some in the store, so if you want them, you can grab them. Let's take a look at them, compare them to what we are replacing. All right, so here's the parts, and you can see they came out pretty good. Now, compared to the 3D printed part, it's pretty much identical. We can go ahead and fit it on the car, make sure everything lines up. But you can see overall good, and you can see the thickness, they are slightly thinner than the original ones. So that is exactly what I was going for. Now putting the rest together, I did get these are in place. I did buy the thrust washer kit for these, so I have the thrust bearing there, so it'll make it easier to move up and down. So those are gonna go on. I need to put anti-seize on all of these just so that nothing seizes up then as I'm building this together. And then everything should be ready to go in the car. So I guess the first step is to get these in with the new brackets. All right, so now it's gonna be test fit time. So it's definitely making some contact over here in this location on the inside. This one, just a tiny bit of contact right here, it looks like. And not even on the hood itself, but on the structure underneath, which is perfect. This one, same thing. It's making contact here, not on the hood itself. Not on the outer body of the hood. So the last check on this, I put some whiteout on there. I'm gonna see if it leaves a mark. So no scrapes or anything, so it's not making contact. All right, so I've spent about 8 hours working on getting these to fit and getting them to fit right. I'm finally happy with where they are. There's enough clearance. I ended up taking off 20 thousandths off each one. So instead of being the 190 thickness, I'm at 170, or in between 170 and 165. Now, one of the things that I did notice while doing this is I really didn't need to take off material. I just took out some extra for a little bit of extra clearance. It was very close, and you know, if anything was shifting around and moving around, there's a chance of contact. Now with this, we can start getting the coilovers on the car. 20 thousandths off. We'll put it on, see how it looks. One other thing that I want to note on this is I did end up going to a stronger grade of aluminum, so I went from 60-61 to 70-75 just because I knew that I was going to be taking some material off and going thinner. So with this, should be enough, but I'll keep you guys updated on if anything happens with it. And I don't expect anything to happen from it, but just because of the way that it gets loaded up. Really shouldn't see any impact because of that. The plate is squashed between the shock tower and the upper piece. And then the piece that connects back to the firewall, it's really coming at an angle, so it's not really trying to bend it too much. It's gonna be pushing at it kind of in line with it versus perpendicular, so I'm not really worried about it. All right, all the parts that I need are here now to put this together. Springs are all set, shock is all set. I got a bunch of new bolts from Bolt Depot. So this place I really like. They're semi-local to me, so I can just get these delivered to me within a day or 24 hours. So I got some new bolts and nuts for down there because unfortunately I think I cross-threaded some of the lock washers or the nylock nuts that I had on kind of non-fine thread and destroyed them. So those need to be replaced. We're gonna do that. So let's go ahead and get this ready and get it onto the car. Now the first thing we're gonna go ahead and assemble is we'll get a little bit of anti-seize on here just to cover up some of it. And then we need to put all the parts together. So this is the bearing that's gonna go on first. This is gonna just slide on and be dropped down to the bottom thread. 45 minutes later. Now this is all set. I do have the thrust bearing kit. So we're gonna go ahead and put anti-seize on these and then slide it down on the top of them. And it goes washer, bearing, washer. Then after that's off and in place, we can just drop the spring right on top. So we're gonna take this spring, we're gonna drop it, we're ready to put it in the car. So we're gonna go ahead and take the spring and we're gonna put it up and in there. We might have to remove the strut tower bar to get this to fit. So the goal here is gonna be to be able to get this up and in and get the bolt in the top and get it locked into place, leave these out, and then get that after. So I'm running into an issue where there isn't enough play to get this up. So with the amount of travel there, if I pry up on this with a pry bar, the spring is making contact still in here, so it's seated correctly, and I can't get this up. So what I'm gonna have to do is put the nuts on the back side of here, and then jack everything up, and try to compress that spring some, because the way that I have it right now just is not working. All right, I'll mention this one more time. Not the right way to do this. All right, so I guess with everything in now, we can go ahead and drop it down, put it on the wheels, see what it looks like on the ground. All right, so I literally just dropped it to take a look, and that is much too low. So when I push this back, then pull it back in the garage, it's gonna drop even further when it settles. So I think I'm at the point where it needs to go up, so up we go. But it does look pretty good when it's slammed in the front. Front, back, still up a little too high. Yeah, that is on the low side. All right, so I'm definitely still on the too low side. The tire is actually still within the lip. I think it does look good, but it's lower than I'd like. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and jack it up. We're gonna get some room in here, and then we're going to tighten up this and move the spring up so that we can add more force to it so it lifts the car up. So I'm gonna go ahead, take this wrench, and since this isn't tightened down, I can go ahead and just spin this up. But I'm gonna add some more tension to the spring and lift it higher. So I'm not going to go ahead and lock these in place yet. I just want to get it in the right position before I go ahead and tighten everything down. Alright, you can see there's definitely more room. It's about 1 inch of space in there, so it's significantly better than we were before, but I do need to roll it backwards and forwards to see where I end up. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do this another 5-10 times, move the car around, see if I can get it to where I want it to be, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the final ride action. Alright, well, the car's sitting much lower and looks much better than it did before. Now, if you remember previous videos, this was sitting significantly higher. And, you know, right now, it's still too wet out, still too salty out to go on the roads to do kind of a full drive and do a test of the springs and suspension. So that'll come a little bit further in the spring. You know, it's definitely getting nice out, so that should be very soon. Overall, I'm really happy with the look of the car now. You know, I did add up so that I have about an extra inch of space here above the wheel. I'll have to drive it, make sure that's enough. The other side, it looks a little bit more sunk in out here just because my driveway's a hill. Until I get it on flat ground, this will have to do. Now the last thing I have to do is make sure that I get a good alignment on this, because after you start adjusting the suspension and touching it, you know, things are going to be out of whack from where they were before, especially since the car's sitting so much lower. But thanks for tuning in to Smackey's Garage this week. Hope you enjoy this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.